We must be alerted every time a user sees a 404 error on our site. This happened around this time last year. I'm a website developer and I used to work for the stupidest buffoon of a man who had no clue about web development. He just ran the company, managed the accounts, etc. But he thought he did. He read articles on web development and forced us to implement the new things he had spent 5 minutes reading up on almost weekly. One day, he was messing about on our company's site, and because of some work I was doing, one of the pages he was trying to look at was temporarily unpublished, resulting in a 404 error. This is just what the website tells you when a page can't be found at the URL you're visiting. He went berserk and lectured me on how this was completely unprofessional and if a customer ever saw it, we'd lose them. I rolled my eyes and said it was only for a minute and it was fine. He then told me we needed to be alerted somehow every time a user got a 404 error on the site. First of all, this is ridiculous. You don't need to be alerted every time this happens. Second of all, sites get hundreds and hundreds of 404 errors every day due to automated scripts trying random URLs to see if they can find anything good, or spiders trying to look for pages that may have once existed but don't anymore. I explained this to him but he wasn't having any of it. No, we need to be emailed every time this happens so we can fix it. I was crying with despair internally at this point, but I decided it'd be hilarious to prove my point anyway. I set up a script on our 404s template that'd email him every time a 404s page was displayed and left it overnight. I came in the next day to find him sitting there scrolling through pages of his webmail trying to delete the 4,000 or so emails that had arrived overnight. The best part was you could search for the subject, but at most only 100 were displayed at a time, so he would have had to delete 40 pages of emails. I also made sure to take my sweet time disabling it, so he probably got a couple hundred more before I got round to doing it. Edit, to everyone saying I'm ungrateful to my boss etc. and that we should be monitoring 404s anyway. We had GTM, Yandex Metrica and a bunch of other analytics software running on the site. Had the boss not insisted on an email being sent, then I would have simply crunched the logs for him. The point of this story is that it's malicious compliance, not I purposely chose a shit course of action to wind my boss up. Now to the comments. For maximum malicious compliance, include the URL in the body of the email. Then, he'll get the email, click on the link, and generate another email. OP replied. He probably would have been that stupid too. Human is doing it once. Stupid is doing it 2 to 3 times. Chimp level stupid is doing it until told to stop. Told twice. This reminds me of the customer who asked me to supply him with a list of all the URLs on his site that returned a 404. Look at that. You just got a task for the rest of your eternal life. Have fun getting paid to truly duck around for the rest of your life. URLs are soft capped at around 2,000 characters, so it's not an infinite list. They could technically be larger, but not all browsers will make that request. Either way, they can't be arbitrarily long, so at some point the server, at whatever length the server has configured, would stop returning 404s and start returning 414. The best part was you could search for the subject, but at most only 100 were displayed at a time, so he would have had to delete 40 pages of emails. Semi-unrelated, but anyone know how to get around this in Gmail? It is keeping me from cleaning out my mailbox because it would probably take me hours, only a page of results at a time. Click the box at the top of the list, it will give you the option to select all instead of just what's shown. That crashes me. I used to have a cool logging program that would analyze and graph the 404 URLs, and you could see the most common failed navigations. That way, if you see they commonly misspell something on your site, you could navigate them to the correct spelling. This was back in the day where users were still expected to type long URLs. Also, you can just navigate someone to the main page every time they reach a bad URL, so they never see the 404s page. I've seen some Ceph extensions for CMS that do something similar by adding some simple AI logic to look for spelling mistakes or dyslexic typing and create multiple URLs for the same page. Back in the day, worst was when you'd have HTML, and then HTML would result in 404s. I'm surprised he didn't force you to figure out how to prevent these from happening. At which point I'd have disabled the script and written something so his IP address never got 404's error. I hate when sites do this. Show me 404's, give me a way to report it if I think it's wrong, and possibly suggest alternate pages. Just don't go around breaking protocols because your boss is a moron. What was his response? OP replied. He told me to write something in so each URL only got emailed once, and he set up some filter on his emails so they wouldn't go to his main inbox. I left shortly after, so they're probably still going. Did you then set up an external script to attempt to connect to 1 million non-existent serially numbered, or random, URLs on the site? What? You don't have a dev environment? Why would any part of your live site have to be down for you to do any work on it? That was my question. You need to stop developing in production, man. If he was a dick, probably would have been worth creating a scraper in your off time to visit obviously missing pages. Nuke his inbox and also the IP for emailing. Would have taken a few minutes to it. That alternatively you can embed a redirect upon a 404 not found to itself. Quoting another user, how to run a DOS attack on your own server out of spite. Have you already exposed to TFTS? OP replied. Haha, nope, feel free to do so if you want some karma. Nope, it's yours, go there, earn your imaginary points. They love some good examples of manglement. I don't know, doesn't seem unreasonable to expect your pages to not go missing suddenly. I'm a web developer, I know shit happens sometimes, but it's not okay because it was just a minute. These things should be avoided. I had to scroll way too far to find this. No, it isn't okay to take down content in production in the normal course of business. You shouldn't be serving a 404 if a page is down temporarily. This indicates to the user that they have visited a page that does not exist and that the problem lies with them. You should be serving a 503 to indicate that you have broken your own website for a moment. From the RFC, 503 service unavailable. The server is currently unable to handle the request due to a temporary overloading or maintenance of the server. Whether or not it is okay to break your own website depends on how critical the site is. If your site is internal and used by 6 people, then sure, go ahead. If it's public facing and making money for the business, then that doesn't seem like a good idea to me. It sounds like you think temporary outages are inevitable and always acceptable, which makes me think your manager is being more reasonable about this than you are. Right? Sounds like he made a mistake and didn't want to own up to it. Instead, he wrote a script to cover his ass and mislead his boss. I mean, he did have a point. A customer browsing your page and getting a 404 is unprofessional, and it looks bad. It could make them go, geez, these guys can't even set up a web page properly. And it should be avoided at all costs. But the correct solution to that would be try to schedule the website's downtime around when we have the least amount of traffic, not email me every time we register a 404. I used to be a web dev and I would have been fired if I took a page down without redirecting traffic first. A 404 does in fact lose you customers. You work for a company that receives 4,404s overnight, yet you're still developing in prod. Just making changes for a minute in the prod environment? Really questioning how real this is. But seriously, you should monitor the rate of 404s and alert on abnormalities. He went berserk and lectured me on how this was completely unprofessional and if a customer ever saw it, we'd lose them. I rolled my eyes and said it was only for a minute and it was fine. You are wrong, it is unprofessional. He then told me we needed to be alerted somehow every time a user got a 404 error on the site. This is when you go, okay, let me look into it, and get back to you. And you realize he was asking you for an alert when the site goes down, which is incredibly reasonable thing to have. Sheesh. I can't believe you people upvoted this. Exactly. boss man isn't wrong or unreasonable at all. I mean, we didn't hear the tone, but at the end of the day 404s are a huge user experience issue and not something to roll your eyes at. Hasn't OP read the 8 million Moz articles about it? Does OP not know that there are all kinds of tools companies pay big money for to stay on top of this sort of thing? Next time use a staging site, amateur.